I think we've all been there. You push and you push, you work and you work, you put forth effort and time and sacrifice and energy, and things just don't go your way. And you do not get the results that you want. And I want to share a quick episode with you on something that I experienced that was very similar to this realm and some things that helped me along the way, whether it's career related, professionally, or in your personal life, working towards some goal or milestone or achievement. I want to share a couple things that helped me overcome that setback and adversity and how that might be able to help you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. This is your host, Colin Walters. And last year, maybe like a year ago, year and a half ago, I was working at DocuSign in software sales. So I've been in this career and profession for close to about a decade at this point, going, I think like 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And it was arguably one of the worst quarters that I've ever had. It's one of those where if you can relate, thing regardless of the effort, regardless of the energy, the inputs, right? Sometimes things just do not go your way. And that is just going to be life, right? It was whether, person or professionally, it was deals slipping or deals pushing out a quarter or budgets freezing or, you know, timing's off, bad timing, went with a competitor, not making a decision, ghosting you, going dark, everything that you hear in sales, right? I received basically every one of those that you can imagine. And it was a rough quarter. And I was nowhere near hitting my number, like not even close. I was well under 50% of that. In baseball, right? There's this obviously, the majority of people know about a slump, right? Going into a slump and you can't you can't hit the side of a barn even if you tried, right? There's also called this like Mendoza line where if you're like teetering with the Mendoza line, you're like barely just at, above that 200 threshold. So like for every 10 at bats, you're getting two or less hits. It's not where you want to be. And it's right where I was. And so if you've worked on a project, maybe it's a personal project or a career goal, or you're in sales and you're not hitting your numbers, or, you shot for a marathon time and came nowhere close, right? Like it was a terrible quarter. And here's what I did, more importantly, because just like as we talk about on the show, E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. And that response takes a concerted effort to take a step back and pause and breathe and remember that we are not our number. Our identity is not tied to the result of whatever we're going after, right? Our identity is more so tied to the characteristics that we behold within ourselves on what are we actually doing when these things happen, because they're inevitable, right? We're going to be faced with adversity and setbacks and challenges and all these things and obstacles. And it's how do you work through and not go through those things, but how do you grow through those things as an alternative way to think and to proceed and move forward, right? We're not trying to go around the log or under the log or, right, but we're trying to go through that freaking thing, right? I think, thinking about Ryan Holiday, right? The obstacle is the way, right? Opportunity to grow, to learn. And so here's what I did. That, I gave myself time. Like it was super rough, and I just let myself feel whatever I needed to feel. I let myself emote. I let myself just honestly kind of just let go of the result too, which I think is important, right? But then that next morning, it was a brand new quarter. It was a fresh day. It was a fresh morning. I did not, the last thing I was going to go do is jump right into the workday and just start rowing in the freaking boat again. It was the last thing I was going to do. So I chalked up this entire day to actually just sitting and thinking and reflecting and putting pen to paper and, trying to understand what happened. Where did we go wrong? Right? What can we fix? What can we address? And how can we move forward? And what are the next best things that we can do, right? The next best behaviors, the next best path that we can see, right? And so I basically, after doing some of that, picked up a pen. And for those of you watching, this yellow piece of paper, for those of you listening, I'm holding up a yellow little notepad piece of paper. And I just asked myself, what are the fundamentals to get back to doing? And these are what I want to share with you, whether you're in sales or business or entrepreneurship, or you have your own sort of career, or you're working through things personally. I think that this list right here is applicable to just about anybody on this earth and whatever you're pursuing. And so what I want to do is actually read these. These are my handwritten notes for those of you that are watching. And I took this piece of paper and I wrote it down and I stuck it on my computer screen so that I stared at it every freaking day to get back to the basics, to get back to the fundamentals. Right. So whether these are directly applicable to you, amazing. I'm sure that at least, two, three, four of them will be. And alternatively, if they are not at all, what I would encourage you to do is think about what are your fundamentals that you can also get back to, right? What are the basics? Back to the basics and executing those consistently well. It's kind of the idea. So, and here's the deal. Like I wrote this list and I have either hit my quarterly number or come pretty damn close just about every single quarter since then. And I've achieved a lot of success in this area of my life. And so here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and read these off. And I have it titled Sales Fundamentals. And I think as you listen to these, you will also be able to just delete the word sales and just say, like personal development fundamentals or growth fundamentals or however you want to frame it. So, but here we go. Number one, be engaged. Be engaged, like actually into what we are doing, communicating in this remote world with colleagues and coworkers and clients and people, right? Being engaged in your work, being engaged in meetings, right? Being an active participant, unmuting yourself on a Zoom call, putting on your camera on a Zoom call. Like those are some of the fundamentals in this remote work that we do nowadays. If you're in office, amazing. Speak up, right? So be engaged. Number two here is active listening, truly listening to understand, not listening to respond. Number three, always scheduling a next step. So in sales, in business, I find it is like extremely important to always have a mutual next step that is mutually agreed upon by each of the parties, right? So for me, what that looks like, and maybe for you, is we have a call and we set up a next step to go over XYZ topic. And we have both agreed to a specific time on a specific day, and it is accepted in both of our calendars. That is what I mean by that. Number four is being responsive. I think that being responsive goes a long freaking way, right? People are trying to do business and do business quickly. I can't even tell you how many times, like when I have made a decision, for example, like, I'm renting out my house right now and going through this process. And I called three property management companies 2 weeks ago over the weekend, left them voicemails, and I'm like ready to go on this thing once I made the decision. One of them called me back on Monday. I call and I answered. We set up an appointment for the next day to walk through and I hired them. They were responsive. They replied right away. They had great ratings online, right? And their actions showed me those things that I was already thinking based on some of my own research, right? And so when we are responsive, you are automatically going to increase your chances to win a partnership, an engagement, a client, a relationship, whatever it may be, right? More than anybody else who is simply not responding. Very simple fundamental. Simple focus, right? What are the simple focus fundamentals for you in your career or towards your goal, right? For me, it is very clear. It is number one, advance pipeline. Number two, create pipeline. I keep it pretty freaking simple and I focus on those two things. And if I am consistently executing those two things 80% of the time, there's a good chance that I'm going to get pretty damn close to my number just about every single quarter. And most of the time, will most likely surpass that number and exceed my expectations, right? So simple focus. What are the key big rocks and priorities for you to focus on that will be the biggest levers to pull, right? To give you the greatest chance for success. Time blocking, right? I have on here time blocking plus execution, right? So taking those priorities, right? For example, advancing pipeline, like actively working deals that are in my pipeline, right? And trying to advance them because the only way to actually hit your number, hit your quota in this game is to close deals. That is what you get paid to do. That is your performance metric, right? At least for myself, it is. Know that for whatever you're in, right? And then being able to actually articulate what needs to happen in order to advance those, right? And then what needs to happen in order to create more pipeline? Is it more calls? Is it more outbound? Is it strategic point of views? Is it reaching out to C levels with strategic messaging? Is it, picking up the phone and making outbound cold outreach or warm outreach or calling down a prioritized list, right? And putting those things into your calendar and then actually executing them. And then I have on here daily dials. So going back to the time blocking, right? I have 10 calls before 10. And that is basically just a way to consistently get some calls in before the day gets away from you and before the day gets crazy. Plan your attack, attack your plan, right? So again, common theme, taking a step back to strategically think about what are the biggest levers that you can pull, right? In order to have the best chance at increasing your success, right? To move the biggest rocks. And then how can you go and actually execute those, right? So step one is we strategize, we prioritize, then we plan it, and then we go execute. Plan your attack, attack your plan. And then I have follow up emails immediately, right? It's just a very basic fundamental of anything that we're doing, which is, right, being able to, when you have that time allocated, right, you have the calls, you have the meetings, you have the appointments, and then you follow up like you say you're going to do. Pretty simple. Avoid social media and digital distraction. This one is so big, right? I did this about probably right about the time that this quarter happened. And what had happened is I joined a coaching program with Untap Your Sales Potential. Shout out Ian Koniak for the program. And my commitment to myself in order to invest the money, right? I spent 9K on this program and I invested in myself. I invested in my career. I invested in my own development. It was a big number for me to do that. It was the most that I had invested in a specific program in myself ever, right? And with that, I made a commitment to myself that I would do no social media and I would not touch anything in between the hours of 7 to 5, right? 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Anything outside of those hours, free game, even though this specific rule drastically decreased my usage on social media anyways. And it was more so just to promote the podcast and try to actually do some little marketing. But that was a commitment that I made. And I think that is such a simple thing that anybody can do. If you like, you will save so much time and focus, right? You hear it all the time, but it's like when you are jumping in between projects and tasks and you're working on something and you go jump into say social media, you start scrolling, it takes you, I think they say like 7 minutes to even get back to the train of thought of where you were, and you've already lost the momentum that you have anyways. And that's not even including the time that you were sitting there scrolling, right? So we're talking like 30 minutes at a time of loss of productivity. And that's just for one instance. Imagine if you did that 3, 4, 5 times during the day. We're talking like literally 2 to 4 hours, right? So that was such a simple one, very simple black and white rule. I'm a very black and white person. There, you are either doing it or you're not, and that is something that I think was very, very easy to do. I have just a couple more here. Always ask for the offer. I'm in the business of closing deals and closing sales and earning partnerships and bringing on new clients and new customers, right? And it's going to be very hard to do that unless you actually ask for what you want and ask for the offer, right? AAFTO. This is one that I heard years ago from the legendary Zig Ziglar. Shout out Zig. We share the same birthday. And that was one that I had written down. And it was just a constant reminder of when we get the opportunity to earn the right to ask for the business, make sure you ask for the business and ask for the offer and ask for the close. Can we do it now? Can we do it today? Why or why not? Can we do it this week? If I would you, if I can you, right? If we can, do a net 45, can you sign today? Okay, why not? How could we get it to sign today if I could do that for you? Right? It's like, I mean, obviously we don't need to get into the tactics of things, but essentially like remember to ask for what you want. It's kind of the bottom line, whether that's sales, business, entrepreneurship, or whether that is simply in a relationship and we're trying to communicate better, right? Asking for what we want because we are not mind readers. I feel like I specifically have learned this time and time again of like, yeah, no shit, the other person has no clue that I actually wanted them to go do this thing because I never actually told them or asked them to do that. And I'm just thinking that this person is reading my mind, right? Wake up call, Colin, they're not. So always ask for the offer and more so ask for what you want. Three more here. I put meetings, high value meetings leads to pipeline, leads to close deals. That ties back to the simple focus and the time blocking, right? Which is basically what are your big rocks? Go execute those more than anything else that you're going to do. And I guarantee you, your success will increase, is the bottom line. Keep learning in all caps. There's nothing greater than learning and feeling like we are making progress in our own personal lives. And that alone attributes to our success in our careers, financially, personally, relationships, right? I think that as we are always continuing to learn, that also keeps our curiosities alive, right? And then we're always curious about the world, ourselves, other people, right? And so continuing to learn it also keeps things just exciting. Lastly, I have on here all caps, have fun. If we're not having fun, what are we doing it for? And shout out Jackson Mitchell because I posted this on LinkedIn yesterday. And obviously this is the podcast version. And so we're going way deeper than anything on LinkedIn. But shout out Jackson because he brought up trusting the process. And I think that having fun, right, ultimately ties into what is that process for us? Because if we're not having fun with the process, there's a good chance that we are not going to enjoy what we're doing, considering the process is what we do 99% of the day. And the result is about that 1%, right? So, yeah, results make it all even that much better. And those should be celebrated, right? But also, so should the small successes. So should those 10 calls by 10 a.m., right? So should planning, executing, and committing and doing what you said you were going to do. Like those should be celebrated as well, right? The inputs, focusing on high value inputs in order to let go of the results and let those come. As long as we are focused on doing the right things, taking the right behaviors, right? Behaviors precedes success is something that I learned very, very early on from Trevor Moawad, the book behind me, right? And then Colin Henderson reiterating that, right? It's like the right behaviors will ultimately lead towards more forms of success and give you a greater chance for success. And so I'm going to leave it there for today. This was a fun one. I've been cleaning out my office and I found that note on the screen of the computer that I was cleaning out. And it just took me back to overcoming challenges, right? We're all going to go through them. And granted, like on the main scale of life, like this is rather small, right? A minor blip of not hitting my quarterly number. But to me, it is also big because I take pride in my work, as I'm sure you do. You take pride at being a professional. You also take pride in being a human who has setbacks, who has hard times, who has adversities. And ultimately, we can take the pride in what do we do about it too, right? Allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel, go through your own process, right? Reflect on things, understand the whys and the hows, right? At least better, and then put a plan forward of how we're going to move and grow through it, right? And so I appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you found any value in this, I ask here, I am asking for what I want, asking for the offer, right? If you could please just share it with one person. And it's like, just if you just go to the episode, I think you click the three dots, right? Hit share it with one person that you think might find value in it or could use one of these fundamentals, right? Or they're struggling, like please share. Like that is the ultimately the way that we can actually have a greater reach on what we're trying to do here, which is impact as many people as possible. And ultimately, my goal is to do that one day, one person at a time. And so if that person's you, let me know. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on Instagram. You can reach out to me over text or a phone call, over email, right? Like whatever it is. So anyways, I appreciate you tuning in and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you got to the end of this episode, can you please do me a huge favor and leave a 5-star rating and review? This helps me be able to reach out to bigger guests and also be able to get access to special events and activities that otherwise would not be possible without your support. So if you could please take just 3 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next episode.